Vice President, we will begin with either a pledge or a prayer from.
I'll be doing a prayer tonight, Madam President.
All right. You may either rise or bow your heads, whatever your preference.
Okay, thank you. Lord, as we start this meeting, we humbly come before you at a challenging time for our city, our state, and our nation. We're weary of the coronavirus. We're saddened at the loss resulting from the mid-Michigan floods, and we're both appalled and heartbroken to have watched a man die in Minneapolis. We know that all men and women are created in your image, and we grieve as we consider the pain, anger, and bitterness clearly expressed by so many. As we grapple with these issues, please grant us the courage to confront evil when we see it. We look to you, the supreme judge of the world, as we seek justice where it seems absent. And as we desire healing from deep wounds of the past, we ask you to increase our understanding and love for our neighbor. Finally, grant us the grace to forgive. Lord, I believe there's only one time in history where we have seen justice, love, and forgiveness perfectly converge in the defeat of evil. And that was when you gave your son for the redemption of the world. So it is to you that I turn to heal our land, starting in the hearts of each and every individual. I pray that our city, state, and national leaders, and all of us, would seek your wisdom in making decisions, even as you have promised to give freely to all who ask. I ask for all these things in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Vice President Barr. Appreciate that. We have all members of council with us this evening. And I don't know of any special groups that we have in the audience.
No.
I do not have any announcements to make. Are there any announcements council would like to make?
Yes, Madam President.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you can see my.
No, I'm sorry, Councilmember Toy.
Thank you so much. I just got an email that I think all of us might be interested in. It wasn't from our last meeting, by the way. That was just a joke. Anyhow, the county commission meeting is going to be Tuesday to discuss leasing 2 acres of Hines Park. I've sent this to Judy and Sarah in our office if anybody's interested. It's at 11 a.m. Tuesday, June the 9th. And there's an agenda as well. And everyone's invited to come that would be interested in that kind of venture of Hines Park being leased. So I wanted to make that announcement because I know I've had some calls on it in the past and people that are interested in that. And that may ultimately come to us one day. So I thought it would be good to be informed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Toy. Anyone else? All right, with that, we go to the audience for any audience communication on any item not on this evening's agenda. All right, seeing none, we will move ahead with our agenda and with the meeting. This is a study meeting. There are no votes taken this evening in this meeting. The council members will, however, offer either one resolution or a combination of resolutions for each item. The resolutions offered may include an approving, denying, or referring resolution to a committee or city department for its report and recommendation. A resolution of no further action may also be offered. There are some items that will simply be received and filed for the information of the council. Please note that all of the items on tonight's agenda will move on to the regular meeting of Monday, June 22nd, 2020, where they will officially be voted on. And again, as I announced in our regular meeting, that will also be a meeting via Zoom. We don't know what the status is beyond the end of June. I don't believe the governor's given direction on that, but through June 30th, all meetings will continue to be virtual and conforming with all requirements of the Open Meetings Act as stated in the governor's order. If anyone would like to participate in any of the agenda items that are taken up this evening, you would approach one of the podiums on either side of the room. But you would, in this case, use your raise hand function on Zoom to indicate that you'd like to speak. If you are joining us only by phone, you may press *9 to be placed into the speaking queue. Generally, the petitioner, whether that's a city or a private entity, will make an initial presentation, followed by remarks from those in the audience who wish to speak. So when the item is called and after it's read and the petitioner speaks, then at any time you may put your hand up or indicate with *9 that you would like to speak. When you're recognized, you may state your name and address for the record if you'd like to. You're not required to, but it allows the remarks to be attributed to in the minutes, and it also lets those who are joining us in the audience and the council members know who is speaking to them. And with that, we will begin with new business. And the first item is an award of bid. This comes to us from the Department of Parks and Recreation for the Greenwood Park playground replacement for budgeted funds. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Council President McIntyre. Ted Davis representing Parks and Recreation. We're asking for one playground replacement this year. We had initially bid for 2 playgrounds to be replaced. One is all we're asking for right now. This is for Greenwood Park. We're asking that council award the bid to Play Environments Design for $102,088.74. Excuse me. Councilman Barr will usually ask me this question: what is the criteria for replacing this playground? This one is very simple. Structurally, it is not sound. This has been one of the first ones we've seen in a while. It was installed in 1997. This is the first one in a while we've seen that's not structurally sound and does need to be replaced. I'd be happy to answer any questions council might have on this.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Council?
Madam President.
Yes, Councilmember Jolly.
Thank you, Madam President. Ted, I think you and your people are doing a great job updating the parks and keeping on top of these things. As always, I'm going to put a bug in your ear to go out there and get the most interactive, crazy play sets you can get to kind of make our parks more attractive and more appealing to the older kids as well. I know we've had this conversation many times. I'm waiting to see one of those come across, though. I know you're working on it, but that's something we'd love to see. So thank you.
Councilman Jolly, I would direct, and we talked about this once before, Clements Circle is a great example. If you haven't been there, check that one out. Castle Gardens is another great example of a new playground that is really vertical. It looks imposing. Myself, I would not climb up to the top of it, which makes it, I'm sure, a great amenity in our park system for older kids that are looking for a little more perceived risk. I think those are 2 that we did last year that would fit the bill.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see, we have another, Councilmember McCullough.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd be happy to offer an approving resolution. I looked over the plan, Mr. Davis. I think the plan's pretty cool. You got a little fire truck in there.
Yep. You
got a what do they call the little? It almost a little triangle spinner thing that I don't know. It was over by the swing set. That looked pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the name of that. But I like triangle spinner thing. That sounds pretty technical. So.
Yeah, no, it is, you know, I'm familiar with the Clements Circle playground, and obviously we have the Spear at Rotary, some innovative design. So the playground equipment seems to be getting more innovative every year. So this is welcomed. And do you have any timetable on when you're looking to have this done?
We are hoping for during the summer. Typically, playground companies at this point would focus on school districts and get as many schools done in the summer. I know, obviously, with COVID-19, capital budgets has been affected. I think this is going to move us to the top of the line. I would expect us to, within the next couple months, have this completed.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Davis, I live in Clements Circle, and I have thought many times to take on our new playground system, but I'm a little fearful. So I've watched a lot of other kids, and the neighborhood loves it. There's a ton of kids there all the time. And to point out to Councilman Jolly, he is right there. A lot of older kids love it, and it does attract a lot of different people, but not me anytime soon. A question I did have was, what are some of the future parks that you anticipate you'd like to, or is there a wish list maybe for any residents watching? Do you see any parks in the future getting any sort of update? Is it hard to tell now? I mean,
It's hard to tell now with how capital budgets are going to be impacted for future years. There's always a wish list. Believe right now we updated our 5-year capital plan recently with that is kind of our wish list moving forward and helps us look at what granting opportunities we would go after. I believe the total cost on that it was 36 sites and it was $7.5 million was our total wish list right now. And it'd be pretty much every park in the system. I can tell you that big parks we'd like to redo, Sheldon, Bicentennial. Those are, bigger, larger community parks that we'd love to address with larger playgrounds, more in the mode of what we did at Rotary Park. And obviously funds are going to dictate those things.
thank you, Mr. Davis.
All right, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Davis? And Ted, I don't know if you're prepared to do this, but I know we have some members of the audience on who may not be familiar with, the governor issued an executive order allowing things to open, right? But it doesn't always mean that you can open things when,
Sure.
as soon as, so could you just give us a quick update on opening of playgrounds and our outdoor pools? And it's my understanding there's no date certain yet for when indoor pools will be allowed to reopen. Is that correct?
That is correct, Council President. Right now, outdoor playgrounds are open throughout the city. Dog Park is open. We will be doing field rentals and pavilion rentals starting June 15th. Starting June 22nd, our summer classes will begin. We'll be moving most of our fitness classes outdoors to start because that is allowed per executive order. We also anticipate right now our outdoor pools opening very soon around that date. We're going to be opening Botsford Pool and Clements Circle. Our playground program is allowed to operate, and we are looking at a late June start for that. And we'll have more information out, and we are hoping summer camp, Camp Swoosh will begin July 6th, and obviously that will be very dependent on future executive orders that the governor's office releases to enable to open us up the rec center, excuse me.
All right. Thank you very much, Ted. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on council? Anyone from the audience wishing to speak? If not, it's been offered for the consent agenda by, was that from Mr. McCullough? Thank you. All right, we will move on to item number 2. This is a request for approval of the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Program, also known as the CDBG. The annual action plan draft, budget, and request to approve hold harmless contracts between the City of Livonia and First Step, the Fair Housing Center, Metropolitan Detroit, Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency, Cruise Clinic, Hagera, and I'm sorry, Brandon, if I'm mispronouncing that, Incorporated Stonebrook Counseling Associates, PLLC, and the City of Livonia Department of Community Resources. This comes to us from the Livonia Housing Commission in connection with the operation of a domestic violence victim assistance program for the purpose of providing fair housing and for the mental health counseling program provided through the Community Development Block Grant CDBG programs for the 2020 through 2021 program year. And this is addressed by Council Resolution 46-20. Good evening, Ms. Isaacson.
Good evening, Council President. It is a mouthful, isn't it?
Yes, you have to say it every day.
We came to City Council back in February to request approval for proposed community development block grant budget. Back then, we estimate the amount of funding that we're going to receive from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have received our allotment, which will be $333,446 for the grant year of 2020-2021, in addition to program funds that we will be receiving from our rents from our affordable housing programs. as well as program income from return or repayment of loans, and possibly the sale of one of our houses this upcoming year. The program will consist of a major home improvement program to Livonia residents who otherwise may not be able to seek funding for home improvements. They're able to come to us and we will offer them a low or zero interest loan, as well as some grants. In that funding is also, we participate with the Livonia Public School Trades Program. So we're currently working on Auburndale. So once the school goes back, the trades program, juniors and seniors will work on the current house we have. And we're also going to be purchasing a lot for a possible new build in the future. So with that being said, I'm just asking for approval so we can move forward and submit our application for our 2020 grant year 21.
All right, thank you, Ms. Isaacson. Yes, Councilmember Toy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. These programs are invaluable to our city. Brandy, thank you for doing the great job you've done over the years. And, you know, it's amazing what some of these programs do. And I want to thank you for making sure that they're included this year as well. And with that, Madam President, I should say, I'll offer an approving resolution. This has been housekeeping, right, for many years, and they do a great job. Please extend our good wishes to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did you offer that for consent, correct? Councilmember?
Certainly, Madam Chair, sure.
And I know it's late and everyone's tired, but I'm going to ask Ms. Isaacson to just give, and it was talked about in today's meeting, but Brandy, if you could just quickly recap, you know, roughly the number of people that were tested at our 3 senior housing facilities. And I know we also made the testing available to Brashear and some of the other non-city owned, but let's just focus for tonight on the city owned, you know, about how many tests did we do when they were done by the Livonia Fire Department? And do we have a kind of a percentage that were positive, that we know were positive?
So we offered testing to residents who lived in, we have 364 units combined between McNamara Towers 1 and 2, Silver Village and Newburgh Village. We had approximately a 65% participation rate with the testing. And, but we did 100%, we passed out personal protection equipment to all those residents. So the testing was really important. We wanted to get that done, but I think it is equally important was providing the mask, the hand sanitizer, and information on how to prevent the spread of the coronavirus.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Great job. Great partnership with fire department. I think our TLC program was involved, but extraordinary.
Yeah, I think so far we have offered the testing to over 700 Livonia senior residents amongst our senior communities and passed out personal protection equipment to all of those participants. So
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move on to item number 3, and that is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance number 943 is amended. This comes to us from the Department of Law to amend section 2.10 of Article 2 to make policy choices regarding the districts where medical marijuana facilities may be located. Mr. Bernie. There we go.
There we go. Good evening again. This comes to us, I have to go kind of a historical approach on this. What we're asking the council to do is to refer this to the Planning Commission for a possible change in the zoning law. By way of explanation and history, as the council is aware, back many years ago, marijuana was easy to figure out because it was illegal. Then the voters, through the Medical Marijuana Act, changed the law and allowed for medical marijuana. Then we had the Licensing Act, and now we have recreational marijuana. As a result, we have a variety of different laws that we're dealing with and trying to figure them all out at one time. When medical marijuana came into play, it allowed for a medical provider, medical marijuana provider, to have up to five patients, and if that person was a medical marijuana user himself to have 12 plants, so you could have 72 plants. In a case of Terbeek versus Wyoming, it was taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically told the municipalities that we could not use our zoning laws to where medical marijuana caregivers could operate. So consequently, the caregivers, if it was a legitimate medical marijuana caregiver operation and the person had his card and the patients had their 5 cards, they could grow up to 72 plants in their residential house. Very recently, we had a surprise decision by the Michigan Supreme Court, basically changing their minds, allowing us as a city to have a zoning ordinance as it pertains to medical marijuana. And I want to draw the distinction between medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, because if a person under recreational marijuana can have their 12 plants, and there's nothing that any city can do about it, nor are we trying to do anything about it. What we're trying to do is dealing with the medical marijuana where somebody has up to 72 plants in a residence. We've had, I've talked to the police chief and the fire chief. We've had several fires in houses that have burned to the ground. I'm not talking about, whether we're for or against medical marijuana, but in a residential neighborhood with improper wiring and improper equipment, it's causing some serious problems. It's causing problems to the neighbors who have to live next door to it, and our first responders are putting in danger. We had the last one that we had, it was where they were cooking down into wax, which is highly flammable, and the house went up. Every time our fire department goes into one of those houses, we're putting them in risk. So what we're proposing under the new decision, we can't eliminate the medical marijuana under the caregivers, but we can have zoning. So the thought that we had was, let's move it to somewhere where it's safe, at least get it out of the residences, the R1 through R5 and the RUF, and maybe put it in the M1 and the M2 zones and look at that. So we've proposed an ordinance that we would like the planning commission to take a look at, to make proposals to council on what is the wise place to have medical marijuana facilities. And these are where we're talking the grow operations. Any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to.
All right, council.
Madam President.
Yes, Council Member Donovan.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Bernier, so I just have a question. So does this mean if this ordinance was to become law, would this eliminate residential medical marijuana grow operations? So a homeowner could no longer grow in their personal residence. They'd have to be in a M1 or M2 or whatever the planning and city council come to a conclusion.
Here's where it gets confusing. It would eliminate the medical marijuana grow operation. It doesn't eliminate the personal use on the recreational one. So for instance, if I'm not doing it, if I wanted to grow 12 plants in my basement for my own personal use, I could still do that. It's preventing the growing of the medical marijuana, which is 2 plants in a residential neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Bernier.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So through the chair to Paul, so what you're asking is that we just refer this matter to the Planning Commission for their recommendation, right? At this point.
Absolutely. It's a zoning matter, and so it would have to go to the Planning Commission for their consideration and making it an official recommendation to the council. Their recommendation may be totally different than what we've recommended, but it'd give everybody a chance to have an intelligent discussion on the issue.
I'll offer that resolution on consent if there's no objection.
Councilmember Toy.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Chair, over to the city attorney once again. Would our inspection department then preview these M1 or, the new zoning? They would make sure it's functioning correctly and doing what the provides, right?
Yes, currently we have businesses in Livonia that are medical marijuana grows. We know they're there because when they have submitted to the Planning Commission, they've listed right on it, medical marijuana grow facilities.
Right.
at them, and we have determined that they are within the law. They have
Sure.
plans, they're locked up and secured the proper way, they have their cards. We have no issue with it. What we're checking to make sure is that they have proper electrical, proper installation, proper, all the permits that they need, so it's not a danger to the community. Because what we have right now is it's completely unregulated. You may remember the one house up in Carl, right?
Yeah. Right.
Beautiful house that they
Yeah.
absolutely destroyed the neighborhood because they turned it into a grow operation. We had another house up on Middle Belt between 6 and 7 Mile burned to the ground recently. We just had a house at on Merriman and Curtis. They were cooking, I believe they were cooking wax, burned to the ground. Because there is no supervision of that, we can't get in. So bottom line is it gives us a little better opportunity to make sure that it's being done properly.
Absolutely, and it's for the safety of the growers as well.
It's fair for the safety, yes.
The residents, correct. Thank you very much.
All right, so we have a referral to Planning Commission offered on consent by Councilmember Kathy White. Anyone else from council that would like to speak on this? Is there anyone from the audience that would like to address this issue? All right, seeing none. Seeing none, we will refer that to Planning Commission on consent. Thank you. And, with that, I am happy to adjourn this meeting. Livonia, yes,
Good night.
pardon me?
I'm sorry, good night. I thought you were adjourning. Yeah.
The audience communication.
Communication.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
I'm sorry.
that's all right. We'll go back to the audience. We have last four digits of the phone number are 2633. Good evening.
Good evening. I know this is probably not the right time to bring this up, but I tried during your regular council meeting, and I just want to say, this is Julie McAvoy, by the way. I think a few of you know me.
Hi, Ms. McAvoy.
I just wanted to say, my husband and I have lived here since 1972. We've raised 4 children here. All of my children and their parents have been at one time or another stopped by police. It happens. And the police have always been thoughtful. Few people have received tickets. They explain why they're being stopped. We always raised our children to be respectful of police. If you're stopped, you're respectful of the police officer. If people raise their children that way, that's how they will be treated by the police. I take great offense to hear our leadership in this city to be called racist. People bring subjective opinions to what they see on Facebook. The written word is not always indicative of the spirit by which the person wrote their words. We know you. We know people who preceded you. We've known all the mayors of Livonia since we've lived here. And I just want to say, on behalf of my family, and there are many other people in Livonia who agree with me on this, that we respect everything you do. You work hard. You're not getting rich doing these jobs. And we very much appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Thank you for the way you've handled the last few weekends and what's going on in between. I think you all do a wonderful job. You're respectful of the community. You love this community, and it's apparent. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McAvoy, for calling in for your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
I'm going to go back. If anyone else from the audience would like to counsel, we have Angela. Good evening, Angela.
She's on mute.
No, I thought
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name's Angela. I was born and raised in Northern Michigan, but have lived in Metro Detroit for 11 years, and I've been a Livonia resident for 7 years. The past 2 weeks have been eye-opening for me. I've always identified myself as not racist. I didn't see skin color, and I thought of everyone as equal and deserving to be treated equally. As a healthcare professional, I've always been aware of the socioeconomic determinants of health to minorities, specifically Black Americans in our country. But regrettably, I, like many other white Americans right now, never realized or considered my contribution to that problem. As I've come to realize in the past few weeks, this is because I have not been affected by it. And that is because the system was built this way. The system policies, procedures, and practices were built for people like me and people like the members of the City Council and 90% of the Livonia residents. I had to make a conscious decision to take time to listen, learn, and do a little introspection. I listened to our Black community members share personal experiences dealing with racism, prejudices, and inequality. I stopped defending, denying, deflecting, and avoiding. And what happened is I was forced to face some uncomfortable truths. The first was acknowledging the extent of my privilege. The second is that my white ancestors were violent and oppressive towards African Americans, and our country and communities have been built on racist policies, practices, and procedures. It was extremely painful for me to come to this realization. I felt guilt, anger, and sadness. I was overwhelmed with how little I knew about Black history in our country, and how little I knew about current policies, practices, and procedures in place that continue to oppress Black Americans. How little I knew about things such as sundown towns, redlining, or the extent to which African Americans are profiled by law enforcement, whether that be due to conscious or unconscious bias.
Angela, you have 30 seconds left.
Okay. What has happened in our past from our ancestors and predecessors is not our fault personally, but we're at a turning point in history, and the decisions that we make today are our responsibility and will be remembered for them. This is not us versus police. This is us versus systemic oppression, racism, and inequality. So I leave you with this thought. We can choose to face our uncomfortable truths, admit that systemic racism exists, not only nationally, but here in Livonia, admit our contribution to the problem, whether intentional or unintentional, and then work together towards dismantling racist policies and move towards investing in a system and community that is diverse and one that values every single person who lives here, no matter their skin color. We can choose to remain silent, or we can choose to remain silent and do nothing, because at this point, remaining ignorant and unaware is no longer an excuse, it would be a choice. We have the ability to end 400 years of racism and oppression, and with the world and community watching, we are at a defining point in our country's history. I just implore you to ask yourself, what role are you going to choose to play? Thank you.
Thank you. And I misspoke. I still have my 2-minute timer on, which is what people are allowed during agenda items. So thank you for calling in. Thank you for your comments. You have about 13 seconds left. If there's something you'd like to say. All right, well, I believe we are ending on those words. It doesn't look like Angela's still with us. So with that, I don't see anyone else from the audience who would like to speak. So we will say good night, Livonia. Thank you. And the meeting's adjourned.